Howdy, folks. It's your friend Max Mogren reporting live for you from beautiful Alpine, Wyoming. This is Wake Up Wyoming here on Wake Up News. Thank you so much for tuning in. As you see in the headlines there, Janet Yellen and the crew are coming back to town tomorrow. That's right, Jackson Hole. Daily reporting yesterday, market movers head to Jackson Hole. Let's see if we get a viewer. We got viewers. One potential highlight could be the upcoming gathering starting tomorrow in Jackson Hole for central bankers, economists, and policymakers. Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen and the European Central Bank head Mario Draghi are both expected to speak at the symposium, which begins Thursday. Tremendous stimulus from central banks has been one of the main reasons for the stock market's surge since the Great Recession. But the Fed is now slowly raising interest rates and preparing to pare back the vast trove of bonds that it bought following the 2008 financial crisis. Investors are wondering when the European Central Bank may follow suit. Jackson Hole has been the site of market-moving news in the past, including in 2010, when former Chair Ben Bernanke signaled the Fed may embark on another round of bond buying to shore up the economy. So that's right, folks, the Fed coming to Jackson tomorrow. Market movers. It's funny here, they even openly admit tremendous stimulus from the central bank has been one of the main reasons for the stock market surge since the Great Recession. Okay, I can't stress that enough. And like I said, a woman I've had a crush on for a very long time, Janet Yellen, coming back to town tomorrow. Really hoping that her and I can meet up and have some fun together. But anyway, thank you all for tuning in. Let's get right into it. Jackson Hole Daily today, taking a good look at the mainstream media, the print media, and shredding it, so to speak. This paper, 44 pages. As usual, about 70% advertising, 20% fluff, and only 10% actual news. Again, the big news out of here. The Federal Reserve coming back to Jackson Hole tomorrow, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing Miss Yellen. Hopefully I can interview her and ask her what the Fed is going to do, how they're going to manipulate the economy next. I have to say, I got such a huge crush on Janet Yellen because she has the power to bring the entire country, the entire world to their knees with just the stroke of a pen. There's nothing more seductive than for an unelected lady, the chairwoman of the Federal Reserve Bank, to have so much power over all the rest of us. I think I'm going to call Janet up right now and see if she'll get together with me tomorrow. Let's see what happens. Got my old rotary, but it works great. JT Jones, thanks for tuning in. We're going to call up Janet right now. I haven't seen her for a couple of years, and anytime a beautiful woman like her comes to Jackson Hole, I make time in my schedule. It's ringing. Hey, Janet. Yeah, it's me. It's Max. How you doing? I wish you would have let me know you're coming back to Jackson. I'd love to get together, have some fun like last time. I don't know, maybe we get a bottle of wine, have a little picnic, do a little stand-up paddleboarding. Yeah? Well, I'd love to see you too. I know you have a husband. It hasn't stopped me in the past, Janet. And maybe we can get together, print out a couple $1 billion and just disappear together. Wouldn't that be nice? You'll see me? Okay, great. What time can I pick you up? 5:30? Perfect. Yeah, I guess Bernanke and Greenspan can come, but I'd really like to spend some time alone with just you and me. Yeah? Can you give me any insider info about what you're going to be discussing? No? All right, maybe we'll talk about it over a bottle of wine tomorrow. All right. You take care too. Bye. So there we have it, folks. I got a date with Janet Yellen tomorrow right here in Jackson Hole. Super stoked. Hopefully I'll be able to give you all the inside scoop on what's going down. If my show discontinues, if you never hear from me again, that's because Janet and I printed up a couple billion and took off around the world. So let's get right into it. Now that my day's made. Jackson Hole Daily. Again, 44 pages, mostly advertising, mostly fluff. Interesting local news here today. Edibles mean misdemeanor because of a recent ruling by the 9th District Judge in a state law loophole. If you're caught with a truckload of marijuana-infused edibles, possession is a misdemeanor. If you're caught with more than 3 ounces of the leafy stuff, it's a felony. So there we go. That's kind of fun here in Jackson, here in Wyoming. The laws on marijuana changing. Okay. Fluffity duff in the opinion section here. Winter Park joins compact on climate change, of course. CO2, the great demon that we're all told to be so afraid of. Never mind the... yeah, I know, Michelle, I am blushing because I have a date with Janet Yellen tomorrow. She's a babe, most powerful woman in the world, unelected, got the power of the purse. And I personally could use a sugar mama because here at Wake Up News, we don't make any money off of anything we do. And I'm personally pretty tired of working a slave job. I imagine you are too. Getting into the opinion section, we got Nicholas Kristof teeing off on the eclipse and scientists. There's no controversy about the arrival of the eclipse. We all accepted the scientific consensus about this timing and swarmed to the best viewpoints. So why is there so much resistance to the similar scientific consensus about other fall-toward events, such as, of course, climate change? My Times colleague Justin Killis made this point in a notable article. We as a society clearly trust scientists and their predictions about eclipses, but ignore the scientific warnings about the far more dire consequences of our cooking planet. As Gillis noted, it's not as if such cautions are new, for scientists have been discussing global warming since 1897. Nor is the problem that climate warnings have not been verified, for global average temperatures have indeed risen by almost 2 degrees Fahrenheit since then. I talked with Brown during the eclipse, and she dryly made the point. In Oregon, we actually make public policy based on science and data. It would be nice if Congress did the same. There remains a range of climate possibilities ahead, partly because feedback loops are difficult to predict and uncertainty is inevitable. There's also legitimate debate about the best policy changes to respond to climate change. But our national response has been a shrug. And that's difficult to reconcile with the scientific consensus about the risks ahead. Blah, blah, blah. So it goes on and on about climate change and the scientific consensus on climate change. Okay, there really isn't a scientific consensus on climate change. And there are many other factors in addition to greenhouse gases like CO2 that contribute to climate change. Most notably, ongoing weather modification programs and covert geoengineering programs. Can't stress that enough. So you got your classic climate change propaganda there in the opinion section. Nice little political cartoon there too. $20 trillion national debt. Well, I say it's offensive and needs to come down. Okay, who does it owe to? Who do we owe $20 trillion to? Well, it's owed to the central banks. It's funny, I had a great social studies teacher in 8th grade, and he made a comment that always stuck with me. He said, well, the national debt, really, we just owe that to ourselves. Okay, the private, profit-driven global banking cartel loans all the money into existence and charges interest on it, right? If the national debt went to zero, there'd be no money left in circulation. Kind of funny how that works, but I'm going to talk with Janet about that, tomorrow during our date. Hopefully we can square things up, get things situated before the government shuts down again, potentially in October, early November, due to another debt ceiling increase, right? Here we have a good example in the paper of how statistics can be so shockingly skewed, specifically unemployment statistics. Wyoming's unemployment rate has fallen significantly over the past year, but not because more people are getting hired to fill a growing number of jobs. The Wyoming Department of Workforce Services said the labor force in Wyoming has declined significantly since last summer. The labor force is the number of people who are either working or actively looking for work. The department reported Tuesday that the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate in Wyoming in July was 4%, down from 5.4% in July of last year. What's changed is Wyoming's labor force decreasing by more than 7,000 people, or over 2%. Economists said people appear to be moving to other states or dropping out of the workforce. Okay, we can't stress that enough. If you go to a website like shadowstats.com, you can see that the real unemployment rate, calculated the way it used to be calculated in the United States, is around 22%. That includes people who stopped looking for work, right? That includes people who are so discouraged they've just given up. That includes people who collected whatever, in Wyoming, I think it's like 10 weeks you're allowed to collect unemployment, something like that. And people that fall off the unemployment rolls no longer exist in those statistics. So it's kind of cool. We see a good example of how statistics can be skewed right here in Wyoming. Unemployment's down, but it's because people are leaving as, the mineral extraction industries like coal, natural gas, and uranium falter. Moving along. House Speaker Paul Ryan, a Republican from Wisconsin, has made his first official visit to Idaho as sitting speaker to host a GOP joint fundraiser. Ryan's brief appearance in downtown Boise on Tuesday included a $10,000 per person VIP roundtable discussion, a $5,000 per person photo opportunity, and a $2,500 per person or $1,000 per person luncheon. Idaho's top Republican officials were in attendance, including Idaho Governor and Party Chairman Jonathan Walker. Governor C.L. Butchotter and Idaho Republican Chair Jonathan Walker. A handful of protesters gathered outside the Zions Bank building before the fundraising began, chanting "out of touch, out of office," and holding signs encouraging Republicans in Congress to protect Idahoans' access to health care. Okay, just like here in Wyoming, Idaho health care costs going up under Obamacare, under the Affordable Care Act. Pretty wild that Paul Ryan can get people to spend $10,000 to sit down and have a meeting with him. If anybody wants to pay me $5,000 for a photo op, just hit me up with a private message. Be happy to accommodate you. Moving along here, we got more fluff, a lot more advertising. Trump. The divisive, distracting head honcho in the White House, going back on his campaign promises, encouraging more war in Afghanistan as the war rages on through its 16th year. President Trump's plan to end America's longest war and eliminate Afghanistan's rising extremist threat involves sending up to 3,900 additional U.S. troops, senior officials said Tuesday. The first deployments could take place within days. In a national address Monday night, Trump reversed his past calls for a speedy exit and recommitted the United States to the 16-year-old conflict. He said U.S. troops must fight to win. He warned against repeating what he said were mistakes in Iraq, where an American military withdrawal led to a vacuum that the Islamic State group quickly filled. Okay, also important to note that the ISIS, the Islamic State, fund, supported, trained, equipped by the U.S., by our military-industrial complex. Trump himself would not confirm how many more service members he plans to send to Afghanistan, which may be the public's most pressing question about his strategy. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's important to know when they talk about bringing more troops into Afghanistan, a lot of the Americans and other folks fighting in Afghanistan, training Afghan personnel to fight, are private contractors. I had a buddy who got home from another tour in Afghanistan not that long ago, and he's not among the 4,000 they're planning to send in there because he's a private contractor. There's a lot of them. And the beat goes on, okay? The Trump presidency, not surprisingly, towing the line with the rest of the establishment. So, no big surprise there. Oh, Charlottesville fluff. Not going to touch that one anymore. I think that thing is finally blown over. Fluffity fluff. S&P 500's going on to business here. Strong day fuels markets. The heads of both the Fed and the European Central Bank are expected to speak at the symposium in Jackson Hole. Many analysts are expecting markets to drift sideways in upcoming weeks, with few market-moving events on the calendar. One highlight could be the symposium for central bankers from around the world in Jackson Hole this week. I'll be attending. I have a date with Janet Yellen. Tucker Leby, thanks for tuning in. The Federal Reserve is raising interest rates and is preparing to pare back the $4.5 trillion it holds on its balance sheet. And investors are wondering when the European Central Bank will follow suit. Either it suggests a more aggressive pace than investors are expecting. It would likely mean another tumble for markets. But investors say the Fed in particular has been meticulous in setting expectations so markets aren't taken by surprise. We wouldn't expect much market movement overall, Adams said. Yeah, we'll see what happens here with the Feds. But there you go. George Clooney and his wife are donating $1 million to fight hate groups. The couple announced Tuesday that their Clooney Foundation for Justice is supporting the Southern Poverty Law Center with a $1 million grant to combat hate groups in the United States. Okay, if you don't know much about the Southern Poverty Law Center, you should research that a little more. Fluffity tough, a lot of not news, weirdness in brief. This is kind of fun. German police say they have seized thousands of tablets of a party drug ecstasy in the shape of Donald Trump's head, a haul with an estimated street value of $45,000. Police in northwestern Germany said they found the drugs while checking an Austrian-registered car on the highway Saturday. There's a cool little picture here of these little Trump ecstasy tabs, too. So it's good. We're getting some real hard-hitting journalism out of Jackson Hole Daily here. If you find some Trump ecstasy, keep it to yourself. I don't fuck with that shit. It's bad news. Then we're into sports. More fluffity duff. I don't know if you saw much about this Mayweather and McGregor fight. Apparently the fight promoter was killed. He said it was a staged fight. That's pretty wild news. Big hoopla, divide, distract, conquer. As usual here in Jackson Hole, we've got about 7 or 8 pages of classified ads looking for workers. But of course, there are no affordable places for people to live. Kind of a problem here. That's about it for the paper. I guess we can go into horoscopes. I've got a lot of good stories juiced up on the phone here to get you with. But if you want your horoscope read, let me know right now. Again, I'm no astrologer. I did have some lovely witches from Los Angeles out here to celebrate the eclipse with me. That was a lot of fun. Maybe a little too much fun, which is why I took 2 days off from the show. And now with Yellen in town, all bets are off. But hopefully I'm up there tomorrow interviewing Yellen live for all of you, and she'll give us the inside scoop about what she's got planned. Maybe instead of printing $85 billion a month and gifting it to the corrupt banking cartels and the criminals in D.C., maybe they'll give all that money to the independent media again, and we can solve the problems on this planet. All right, here we go with horoscopes, folks. We got Brian Peterson looking for Aries, Daniel Reichert and Lisa Stockwell looking for Pisces. Brian, you're having a 3-star day. Idea after idea seems to come up from out of nowhere. Unfortunately, when you share what you perceive to be a great idea, someone might rip it apart. Take the criticism in stride, Brian. Let others know where you are coming from. Tonight, Brian Peterson, hang out with a challenging, feisty friend. And we got Pisces, Karen J. Bowden in the house, JT Jones, one in Virgo, Scorpio for Karen. Onward to Pisces. 4-star day for you, Daniel and Lisa. Someone else wants to take the lead. Recognize that you cannot stop the inevitable. Allow this person to dive into the forefront and take charge. You probably will have plenty of influence if you give up trying to control others. Tonight, be a duo. Hang out with a favorite person. So Daniel and Lisa, maybe you two should get together and do some hanging out tonight. JT Jones looking for Virgo. Why not? You know, I don't put too much stock in this, but it's kind of part of it's one of the funnest things to read in the newspaper compared to the rest of it. 4-star day for you, JT. Be aware of the potential that lies between you and someone else. You could feel as if a friend is dragging you down. Focus on the long term and refuse to get stuck in a trivial mindset. In any case, you will become more aware of your feelings. Tonight, paint the town red. JT. And Karen J. Bowden looking for Scorps. As always, 4-star day for you, Karen. Use the daylight hours for meetings or for any matter that is close to your heart. Friends play a significant role in your decision making. You feel well supported. That's good. Make time for a get-together early in the evening, Karen. You'll see a friend through new eyes. Tonight, time for fun and games. I know how wild you like to get, Karen, so keep it in check. And mine, I'm having a 5-star day. Of course I am when I get to talk to Janet Yellen on the phone, making a hot date for tomorrow. 5-star day for Taurus. Your creativity is what separates you from others. Your vision might not make sense to many people. In fact, explaining it is likely to add an element of confusion. Even a close friend could have difficulty understanding you. Tonight, choose an activity that grounds you. Okay, I guess that means I'm going for a hike, going surfing. I don't know. Thank you all for your likes. Thank you all for your shares, your comments. Now we're getting into the real news here. Got them loaded up on the phone. I should let you all know, recently we started a Wake Up News website, and I'm posting all my news sources that I cite on there. Real easy to find. It's online at wakeupnews.net. Wakeupnews.net. Doesn't get any easier than that. Wake Up Wyoming news links for the day. Okay, Washington's blog chiming in. Top institutions and economists now say globalization. Top institutions and economists now say globalization increases inequality. World Bank, IMF, Bank of International Settlements, Enber, and McKinsey now admit that globalization increases inequality. We've all heard that globalization lifts all boats and increases our prosperity, but mainstream economists and organizations are now starting to say that globalization increases inequality. Wolf Street chiming in, is the U.S. gross national debt going to spike by $800 billion in October? It's a good question. You can see every time we hit the debt ceiling, which we're going to hit again here real soon, is the government going to shut down or are they going to bump it again? But you can see what happens there. Every time the debt ceiling gets reached, somehow they manage to balance the budget for a little while, but then we get a huge spike once again. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Coming out of the UPI, Elon Musk and other world tech leaders call for a ban on killer robots. August 21st. Several global robotics technology leaders, including Tesla founder Elon Musk, submitted an open letter to the UN imploring governments to issue ban on lethal autonomous weapons, also known as killer robots. Lethal autonomous weapons threaten to become the third revolution in warfare. Once developed, they will permit armed conflict to be fought on a scale greater than ever and at timescales faster than humans can comprehend, the letter said. These can be weapons of terror, weapons that despots and terrorists can use against innocent populations, and weapons hacked to behave in undesirable ways. The letter to the UN was signed by 116 founders of robotics and artificial intelligence companies from 26 countries. They added, "We do not have long to act. Once this Pandora's box is opened, it will be hard to close. We therefore employ the high contracting parties to find a way to protect us all from these dangers." Okay? So hopefully we don't have autonomous killer robots roaming the streets too soon. International Business Times also chime in on that. Killer robots could change warfare more than gunpowder and nuclear arms, experts warn. Karen J. Bowden chiming in with a great comment there on globalization. Thank you so much. Natural Society, a real disturbing headline out of Natural Society today. Opioid use now tops tobacco use in the United States. A survey released by the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration shows that more people in the U.S. use opioid painkillers than tobacco, highlighting the tragic opioid crisis gripping the country. A federal review published in the spring showed that opioid prescriptions in the U.S. decreased for the first time in 2 decades, which suggests that doctors are finally starting to heed warnings about the drug's addictive properties. However, that decrease has not translated into fewer deaths. The SAMHSA report illustrates just how widespread the problem remains. The problem is especially severe in Tennessee, where there are more opioid prescriptions written than people living in the state. There are 1.18 opioid prescriptions for every resident of Tennessee. More people died from overdoses in the state in 2014 than from car crashes or shootings. Nationally, 37.8% of American adults are using some type of opioid painkiller. Okay, more than a third of Americans, while 31.1% of U.S. adults use tobacco. According to the 2015 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, a subdivision of the Department of Health and Human Services, more than 91.8 million Americans 18 and older used prescription painkillers last year. By comparison, 75.4 million U.S. adults use tobacco products. Those numbers creep even higher when children 12 and older are included. 97.5 million Americans over the age of 12 use opioids. 78.3 million use tobacco. And more than 12.5% of those users of opioids admit to misusing them. So, disturbing stuff. Brian Peterson chiming in, no, they're just prescribing less because they want to keep their licenses. There's some truth to that. Alan Morningstar, good afternoon to you too. Okay? Got a lot of other headlines here. Liberty Brits League chiming in on Trump's decision. Last night's announcement of a recommitment to the Afghanistan war is the earliest evidence that Trump has been completely castrated and will now play by status quo rules with little or no friction. This presidency will very quickly begin to look like the fifth George W. Bush term. Obama was 3 and 4. On every single issue of genuine importance to who? To the oligarchs. Okay? The Guardian chiming in with a great article, a little expose on aerotoxic syndrome. Okay, they blame this on fuel getting, exhaust gases from the fuel getting in, but I'm also concerned about geoengineering, chemtrail chemicals making their way into the planes. But really touching story there out of the Guardian. There are hundreds of sick crew. Is toxic air on planes making frequent flyers ill? Antiwar.com chiming in today. An advisor to Assad says the Syrian war is effectively over. A key advisor to President Bashar al-Assad today declared that the Syrian war is effectively over, saying that the Damascus International Fair marks the end of the war and beginning of reconstruction. The Damascus International Fair had been on hold for 5 years during the war, but kicked off earlier this week with companies from around the world participating in the trade fair. The largest participants are expected to be from Russia and China. While claiming this to mark the end of the war nationwide is obviously premature, it does mark a turning point in the situation around Syria's capital city, as it's unthinkable such an event could have been held in recent years, and this underscores increased security in that area. Still, large chunks of the country remain outside of the Assad government's control, and Shaban, Assad's advisor, vowed to see Syria's army confront illegitimate foreign forces present in the country, singling out U.S. and Turkish forces in particular as objectionable presences. Okay, so our heart goes out to the Syrian people. Again, it was not a civil war. It was a foreign invasion. When the U.S. said it was attacking ISIS in Syria, we were actually attacking Syria in Syria. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully all wars end, because war is the stupidest thing imaginable. We got a great article from Charles Hugh Smith of Two Minds today. He ponders the question, are profit and healthcare incompatible? Okay, Charles Hugh Smith of Two Minds, brilliant guy. The only way to systematically lower cost is to make prevention and transparency the top priorities. As I have been noting for a decade, the broken U.S. healthcare system will bankrupt the nation all by itself. We all know the basic facts. The system delivers uneven results in terms of improving health and life expectancy, while costing 2 to 3 times more per person compared to our advanced economy global competitors. This chart says it all. The global outlier in low life expectancy and exorbitant cost is the U.S. Got a great chart here, thanks to Charles Hugh Smith, showing that the average expenditure on American healthcare every year is over $9,000, while our life expectancy hovers around 79 years. Meanwhile, places like Japan, where they spend less than half, have a life expectancy 5 years longer than that. Spain, where they spend about a third, has a life expectancy of 4 years longer than that. So we got a great little chart there. You can see the U.S. off there to the far right. That's U.S. expenditures and life expectancy. You know, we spend more than double per person as a factor of per capita income, of GDP, on healthcare, while our life expectancy has actually decreased. I think it has a lot to do with our bad food supply, has a lot to do with the pure corruption in medicine, and on and on and on. Okay. The Independent out of the UK saying that the US and UK play crucial roles in creating conditions for the spread of cholera in Yemen. According to researchers, our hearts go out to the people of Yemen and all places affected by Western imperialism, the endless war on terror that is in fact a force of global terrorism. Out of the Cointelegraph, this is interesting on the cryptocurrency topic. U.S. lawmakers draft bill protecting cryptocurrencies from government interference. We'll see what happens there. Cryptocurrencies, big news. Still a lot of volatility in the cryptocurrency markets. It's crazy. I don't know what to think. Either it's the solution or it's a Trojan horse. Love to get your perspective on it. Several members of the U.S. Congress are drafting legislation that is intended to recognize certain digital currencies and protect them against interference from the federal government. The bill, which will provide protection to cryptocurrencies that comply with certain minimum requirements to prevent them from being used by those engaged in illegal business practices like drug traffickers and terrorists, is expected to be filed in September of this year, according to Daily Caller. Based on a reliable source, at least one Republican senator and 2 Republican congressmen are working on the draft legislation. The legislators have requested they should not be identified due to the sensitivity of the issue and the complexity of the proposed solution. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there with the cryptocurrencies. You know, one of the big advantages of cryptocurrencies is your transactions and everything are not traceable. Now, it sounds like this legislation would mandate that your cryptocurrency transactions are traceable, which would be a big change. University of Buffalo, New York State University, scientists use magnetic fields to remotely stimulate the brain and control body movements. Okay, this is nothing new. This stuff's been going around for a long time. Highly recommend this book. The cover's fallen off because I read it so much. The Body Electric by Robert O. Becker, MD, and Gary Selden. Electromagnetism and the Foundation of Life. Shocking stuff. Gives you an idea of how far along the electromagnetic manipulation of living systems has evolved over the last 100 years. But at the University of Buffalo, scientists have used magnetic nanoparticles. Magnetic nanoparticles, haven't heard of those before, have we? Well, wait, that's right. They're spraying them out of airplanes sometimes to stimulate neurons deep in the brain to evoke body movements of mice. Here's an interesting story out of the Independent in the UK. Crackdown on corrosive online hate groups launched by the Crown Prosecution Services, CPS. In the UK, CPS means Crown Protective Services Prosecution Service. In the US, it's Child Protection Services. Hate crimes committed on social media will be treated as seriously as similar street-based offenses, according to new guidelines issued by the Crown Prosecution Service as they launch a crackdown on hate speech online. Recognizing the corrosive effect of hate speech on British society, Alison Sanders, the Director of Public Prosecutions, announced the CPS will now revise prosecutions of such crimes with the same robust and proactive approach used with offline offending. The changes could lead to a dramatic increase in those being prosecuted for posting prejudice attacks on social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in the UK in the wake of this. On a similar vein, talking about madness here, Investors Business Daily came out with a real shocking headline the other day. The United States has 3.5 million more registered voters than live adults, a red flag for electoral fraud. American democracy has a problem, a voting problem. According to a new study of U.S. Census data, America has more registered voters than actual live voters. It's a troubling fact that puts our nation's future in peril. The data comes from Judicial Watch's Election Integrity Project. The group looked at data from 2011 to 2015 produced by the U.S. Census Bureau's America Community Survey, along with data from the Federal Election Assistance Commission. As reported by the National Review's D. Roy Murdoch, who did some number crunching of his own, some 3.5 million more people are registered to vote in the U.S. than are alive among America's adult citizens. Such staggering inaccuracy is an engraved invitation to voter fraud. And to that, I'd like to add, a lot of people that are adults in the U.S. are not registered to vote. I don't know the exact figure on that, but if we have 3.5 million more registered voters than alive American adult citizens, there's some serious monkey business going on. Murdoch counted Judicial Watch's state-by-state tally and found that 462 U.S. counties had a registration rate exceeding 100% of all eligible voters. That's 3.5 million people who Murdoch calls ghost voters. And how many people is that? There are 21 states that don't have that many people in their population. Nor are these tiny rural communities or places that don't have the wherewithal to police their voter rolls. California, for instance, has 11 counties with more registered voters than actual voters. Perhaps not surprising, it is deep blue state California. After all, 10 of those counties voted heavily for Hillary Clinton. Los Angeles County, whose more than 10 million people make it the nation's most populous county, had 12% more registered voters than live ones, some 707,000 votes. That's a huge number of possible votes in an election. But Murdoch states California's San Diego County earns the enchilada grande. Its 138% registration translates into 810,966 ghost voters. Okay, so there's democracy in action, folks. Isn't that shocking? Karen J. Bowden, thank you so much for all your comments. And then my last headline here today, coming out of G. Edward Griffin, his Need to Know News. He posts some good stuff. G. Edward Griffin, author of The Creature from Jekyll Island. I'm hoping to have Janet Yellen sign my copy tomorrow. I'd love to get Janet's signature in addition to other things. But 250,000, now I just checked this, 280,000 plus, have signed a petition to designate Antifa, the alt-left, so to speak, anti-terror group, as a domestic terrorist group. A petition urging the Trump administration to officially label Antifa a terror group has more than double the 100,000 signatures needed to merit a formal response from the White House. The left-wing anti-fascist group has come under fire in the wake of the violence at the white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Many have claimed that Antifa demonstrators played a significant role in the violent clashes in Charlottesville and at other events across the country. As of Tuesday evening, more than 250,000 people have signed the petition, which states, terrorism is defined as the use of violence and intimidation in pursuit of political aims. This definition is the same definition used to declare ISIS and other groups as terrorist organizations. Antifa has earned this title due to its violent actions in multiple cities and their influence in the killings of multiple police officers throughout the United States. It is time for the Pentagon to be consistent in its actions, and just as they have rightfully declared ISIS a terror group, they must declare Antifa a terror group on the grounds of principle, integrity, morality, and safety. So there we go. Interesting there. I don't associate with, I don't identify with, I don't support neo-Nazis or the KKK. Same time, I can't condone the actions of these black bloc protesters who are out there throwing punches just like the neo-Nazis. The whole thing is a classic divide and conquer distraction. Can't stress that enough here. We really, of all the problems in the world today, the KKK and the neo-Nazis are the least of our concerns, because there really aren't that many of them, especially in this country, or globally, and even in this country there's a few thousand at most. So it's important to note that that's the situation. It'd be interesting to see if Antifa is labeled as a terrorist organization. But it's about all I got for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's your boy Max Mogren reporting live for you from here in beautiful Alpine, Wyoming for Wake Up News. If anybody's got any questions, lay them on me. Otherwise, I'm going to get going. Might shave my beard in preparation for my hot date tomorrow with Janet Yellen, the most powerful unelected woman on the planet. So stay tuned. Hopefully I can do some live streaming from the Federal Reserve's meeting here in Jackson Hole tomorrow. Hopefully I can get Janet Yellen's signature on something. Maybe she'll print me a couple $billion and we can really supercharge our coverage here at Wake Up News. But I don't think that's happening. That's why I'm so grateful. Well, even if Janet Yellen printed me a couple $billion, I'd still be grateful for all of you tuning in here at Wake Up News. Without your help, without your support, your comments, your likes, your shares, I would just be a guy sitting here talking to myself. And it makes me feel good to know that all of you are out there and that you care about things like I do. I don't know all the answers. I'm not correct about everything, and neither are you. Neither is anybody else. But I sure appreciate the fact that we can all get together and talk and realize, there are a lot of people out there who care. Okay. It's important to note there is online censorship. It's very real. A good example of that, I retooled a video. If you haven't seen it yet, I'd love for you to check it out. It's called How to Survive Depopulation, 11 Affordable Suggestions. And originally I posted that on YouTube back in 2013. It's my most viewed video of all time. It's got almost 200,000 views. So I thought to myself, man, I should retool this and post it on Wake Up News. So I did. Had a great response from our viewers there, great response from friends of the page, followers of the page, with almost 400 shares. I think 370 shares, which is huge. I mean, it's an honor to be able to bring that information to all of you. But at the same time, when I go through there, like with these videos, I like to go through and when people share it, I like to go through and and thank them for sharing it, because I really do appreciate it. But out of those 370 shares, in addition to me going through and liking them, there's only about 10 likes total on any of those shares. And this is a video that's being shared by pages with, some of the pages sharing it have got over 10,000 followers. So I asked myself, how can a page with 10,000 followers share a video and not get a single like on it, right? And I know a lot of you that come on here and share this, you probably don't get too many likes on your shares either. And, maybe it's because these videos are long, they might be a little boring, I might be a little wordy, but it also probably has something to do with the algorithms in Facebook that keeps the independent media from truly going viral. Anything you can do, sharing something on your wall, always appreciate it. But you might want to try, if you have people that you think, man, my friend Bill or Janet or whoever might get a kick out of the show, try sharing it with them directly. Send it to them as a message, encourage them to sign up, because, as I'm sure a lot of you know, just because you share something doesn't mean it's going to show up in anybody's newsfeed. And it's just the way of the world. So thank you all for tuning in. Max Mogren signing off. Love you all. And I should be live again tomorrow, hopefully up at the Federal Reserve meeting at Jackson Lake Lodge before my big date with Janet Yellen. Y'all take care. One love. Peace.